On August 22, 1862, a rider from Fort Abercrombie arrived at Georgetown. He had terrible news. 4 days before and 200 miles away, a war had broken out between a Dakota army and U.S. settlers. Anyone who wished to seek shelter at Fort Abercrombie was to leave with him immediately. Some Georgetowners left, but the Hudson's Bay Company would not abandon their valuable cargo. The Steamboat International had unloaded a shipment of furs into the warehouse, and any day the Red River Cart Brigade, loaded with manufactured goods, was expected to arrive. The HBC decided to stay and defend Georgetown. Edwin Hutchinson rushed to warn his friends Randolph and Catherine Probstfield on their farm outside of town. We thought we would save him if we could. We had a pair of steers well broke that could trot like a pair of moose, and in less than 10 minutes we were on the road. The Probstfields awoke to pounding on their door at midnight. The situation was explained to them. They packed a cart and their 3-month-old baby Mary and went into Georgetown. There I found consternation, panic, and confusion, and many frightened men and women, Randolph recalled. The night was passed in terror. The next day, the HBC Cart Brigade arrived with 110 carts full of cargo. 44 men now defended Georgetown, but they only had 33 guns among them. Several women and children were in Georgetown as well. The defenders boarded up the windows of Georgetown's 3 buildings, leaving slits for their rifle barrels between the boards. They kept watch in 2-hour shifts day and night. One night, Edwin Hutchinson saw hundreds of Dakota warriors passing by. They stood no chance against a force that size. The defenders determined that they were not safe in Georgetown. They decided to escape north to Pembina, the nearest town, 150 miles away. The people and the HBC cargo were divided in two. Some went by river aboard the Steamboat International. The rest went by land in the Red River carts. The carts crossed the Red River on the Georgetown ferry. I shall never forget the crossing of the Red River that night at Georgetown, recalled Randolph Probstfield. The suffering, anxiety, terror, and disappointment are most deeply impressed on my mind. We had worked all night, most of us. At last I found myself alone with my wife and babe, team and goods. As evacuation progressed, the panic increased. When we came to cross, it required considerable persuasion to have the ferry return for us. The party camped out of rifle range of the timber, about 1.5 miles from Georgetown on the Dakota side. All so exhausted we fell asleep and left the camp unguarded. At breakfast the next morning, a rider approached their camp. It was Pierre Botneau. Fort Abercrombie was surrounded, but he had slipped through the lines to seek help in Pembina. Botneau told the cart brigade that he would return with help to guide them to safety, but they'd better get moving because Dakota warriors were nearby. According to Randolph Probstfield, those who had not eaten desired no dinner. They broke camp and hurried north. It wasn't long before Pierre Botneau returned from Pembina with 18 armed guides led by politician and fur trader Jolly Joe Roulette, but things were not going as planned. The steamboat was stuck in low water. The people and Hudson's Bay Company cargo had to be transferred to the carts. The cargo that wouldn't fit in the carts was piled on a flatboat. Kissing his wife Bella and 2 babies goodbye, steamboat pilot Edwin Hutchinson guided the flatboat north with the current. Norman Kitson, commander of the HBC Cart Brigade, ordered 3 people to stay behind to guard the steamboat until the company could return. Dissatisfaction grew among the Georgetowners as they neared the Grand Forks. They knew the Red Lake Ojibwe were camped there, but they did not know what side, if any, the Ojibwe would take in this war. Botneau and Roulette were no longer posting guards, and the people felt unsafe. A dozen Georgetowners, including the Probstfields and Bella Hutchinson, split off from the rest and returned to Georgetown. The rest of the HBC Cart Brigade, as feared, was detained at the Grand Forks by a large encampment of Pembina and Red Lake Ojibwe. The lives of the mostly Métis HBC employees were not in danger. Many likely had family in the crowd. But the Ojibwe leaders had long been annoyed at the company's steamboat trespassing on their land without paying them a toll. The Ojibwe helped themselves to some HBC cargo, but let everyone go safely to Pembina. The dozen who broke off from the rest walked south along the riverbank until they saw Edwin Hutchinson floating by on the flatboat. Bella and their children hopped aboard, and the Hutchinson family floated north together undetected. The rest of the party was relieved to find Georgetown unharmed. It wasn't targeted because this wasn't Georgetown's war. Georgetown was a British company town, not a U.S. colony. And the Wahpeton and Sisseton who lived in the Red River Valley were trying to stay out of this war. The people of Georgetown were home, but they were uneasy. One night the dogs were barking like mad. There were people outside. Everyone was too afraid to look through the windows. In the morning they saw tracks of horses, mules, and people walking right through town to the ferry. The Dakota were fleeing west for safety.